excited to be at Web2day and to share with you one subject that's near and dear to my heart. Comme vous pouvez voir, mon intervention sera en anglais, mais je parle français, donc si après vous avez des questions, bon, mon accent est québécois, mais si vous avez des questions après, je pourrais échanger avec vous en français, puis vous pouvez venir me voir. We're going to start with a brief introduction. My name is Ivana, as he said, and I work at Essaient. I'm from Montreal, and you're going to get to know me a bit more in the company that I work for. Essaient, we're a software development firm. We build custom solutions for many clients, and we just opened an office in Nantes, so we're super excited to join the Nantes technology community. And as a company, we're very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. My two colleagues, Martin and Sébastien, are here, so if you have questions after, you can go and see them as well. So let's kick it off. So this is me. You're wondering why I'm sharing this photo here. We're going to do a bit of time travel. We're going to go back in time. This is in the 80s. We're in a country that no longer exists called former Yugoslavia. And through that journey, I wanted to showcase how I interacted with diversity in my personal and professional life. And that's going to be only a first part, so you haven't signed up here for a 30-minute biography of my life. We're really going to talk about diversity. After we overview my journey, I'm going to share why diversity is important, and then I will share some tips so you can leave this conference and start acting on it tomorrow. Sounds like a plan? Good. So to start off, as I said, we're going to notice moments of diversity through my life. So when I was 6 years old, the country I was born in was at war. So we became refugees in Spain. And when I was thinking back at that experience, I realized we were almost like famous people. Journalists would come to meet with us. I met the Queen of Spain, who gave me Christmas gifts. We had a chance to meet with the president. So it really seemed jet set. And as a child, you romanticize those memories. But the reason why this happened was because we were different. We were moving to a country, and the government wanted to make sure we were included. And that became the first moment that I noticed diversity. This is a group of kids, refugees, along with me, so I'm the one in the red dress. Now we're in the early 90s, and all of us had to go through the same experiences. We had to learn a new language, adapt to a new country, move to a refugee settlement that was different from our homes. And in the day life, we had a chance to interact with local Spanish kids, and they made us welcome. But at night, they would go back home, and we would go to our refugee camp, and really, that made us realize we were different. If we go 2 years later, so I relocate to Serbia in Belgrade because my dad stayed behind. And when we were there, you would think, why is this a diversity moment? You're going back to the place you were born. But it's not really the case. I had started school in Spain, and when I moved to Belgrade, kids there wrote in Cyrillic alphabet. I didn't know how to write that. And even though I spoke the same language as them, I had a very different accent, so they thought I was kind of weird. And also, they all knew each other for 2 years. For an 8-year-old, that's eternity. 2 years is a long, long time. So did these kids actually reject me or, were mean to me? Well, no, because kids at 9 are really awesome. So 3 weeks after I started school, this was my birthday party, and all my class showed up along with teachers, and that really made me feel welcome. I think we acknowledge often that kids are good at adapting to new environments, but we forget to recognize that they're really good at accepting diversity and to include people that might be different. And my final odd one out moment, when I was 12, I moved to Quebec City without speaking a single word of French, just bonjour. So that was all I knew. So now I was a teenager, and I had to adapt again to a new country. But we worked together with those kids for 5 years. They accepted me, even though it wasn't as easy as when you're 8. And I still have friends from that period in my life. So Because I had lived so many nice experiences as a kid, being included and living in diverse environments, I really embraced diversity from the moment on. So when I chose my career to start my first job 10 years ago, I had a chance to work for P&G, which is a Procter & Gamble, a company that values diversity. So I moved to Toronto. Those of you that know Toronto might not know that in Toronto, 51% of the population is born outside of Canada. That's a huge stat of diversity. Also in Toronto, more than 230 people are represented from different countries, and it's the most diverse city in the world, more than London, more than Brussels, Dubai, or LA. And the company was also diverse and very represented of the local community. So in my team of 11 people, I had a chance to work with people from Pakistan, India, Uganda, Russia, China, Taiwan, and I was from Serbia, and there was people from across Canada, both from French and English-speaking Canada. And also what P&G did really well for diversity is that they had these networks for different communities, and all of the networks were championed by senior leaders. So we had a network for women, the Latin network, African American network, we had a network for new hires, there was the French network, also the Gable, which was for LGBTQ+ community and allies. So they did a really good job, not only about integrating those communities, but educating the whole company and making diversity a priority. And 4.5 years later, I moved into the tech sector. So now you've seen my journey. I was a very diverse person. I moved into a company that was diverse. The tech sector is unfortunately not known for diversity. We struggle with that, especially in technical jobs. So why would I join a company in the tech sector? Well, I decided to make a difference, and I also chose a company that wanted to make a bet on diversity. So at Essaient, we really brought diversity not only as our core value, like you see here, which means diversity is our middle name, but we also brought it at the forefront of our culture. So as I said, I'm going to talk a bit about that later. And the final observation about diversity in my journey was that diversity wasn't always visible or something we easily identified to. Diversity could be much more complicated. It could mean diversity of personalities, it could mean mental health, it could mean diversity of experiences. So diversity is a very broad experience for everyone. So, I told you a bit about myself. I want you to take about 1 to 2 minutes and meet your neighbors, so the person next to you, and tell each other, either to the left or to the right, about something that's unique about you, something that you're proud of, and something that makes you diverse. So I'm going to give you a minute if you want to just network a little bit, and then we're going to go back at the presentation. And feel free to do this. It's going to be a chance for you to have friends for after the conference. Great. So we're going to wrap it up. I'll give you 5 more seconds. So I hope you made some nice connections, and after the talk, then you might find some people you can network with and connect during this great event. So the next section we're going to go into, I want to share data and convince you that diversity is the right thing to do. But before I do that, I just wanted to sum up the different components of diversity as I've showed you through my journey. So diversity, what we first think of when we say that word, is ethnicity and culture. So what country we're from, what religion we're from. So that could be something that is diversity, but there's much more. It could be our age and gender. It could be our sexual orientation. Who do we choose to love? It could be some visible distinctions like disabilities, and also the one we often forget about is the experiences and our personalities, something that's not really obvious. And recently I read a really interesting book about diversity, and I wanted to share what it said about it. So diversity is about recognizing that every people is a rich tapestry woven together from multiple threads: age, education, abilities, disabilities, a culture, experience, ideology, profession, and of course, race and gender all shape who we are. So even if you're not like from abroad and maybe you're from France, there's probably something different about you that you can highlight. So now to the data. So diversity is not just desirable for companies, but it's actually really good for business, and especially for financials. If you focus on diversity and inclusion, you will win in the market. Why? Because our stakeholders are becoming more and more diverse, and so should our teams. Diversity impacts the bottom line, so positively. There's many studies that have been done. One of them showed that gender diversity increased revenue about 41%. A McKinsey study that was recently published showed that companies that focus on diversity achieve 35% above average results. And there's many financial metrics that are improved in diverse companies. Why? As I said, the people making purchasing decisions on the products and solutions we build, well, they're very diverse and we have to understand them. And how are you going to understand them if you don't have part of your team understanding those realities? Another interesting stat was that diverse and inclusive companies were able to exceed their financial goals. So 75% of those companies exceeded their financial goals. This is also something to get excited about. And finally, it's not only positive. Companies that chose not to focus on diversity, they've seen 29% loss of profitability in their organizations because they failed to focus on diversity and inclusion. Is there people here who are in HR or talent management? Yes, only one? Okay, well, for the others, maybe you interact by recruiting talent, managing people, or even, growing your organization. When you have strong diversity and inclusion, you're actually helping attract talent and you're helping increase retention. That's really important. You probably heard it. In technology, we struggle with that. It's really hard to find talent, and once they join your company, they could easily leave for a competitor. So having a diverse and inclusive environment is one reason why people stay. So you've kind of seen my journey and the emotional part of diversity. We've seen that diversity is everywhere, with our customers becoming more diverse, our teams becoming more diverse, our communities becoming more diverse. And now you're wondering, you know the stats that I've showed, so you're saying, I'm going to bet on diversity and this should be easy. Give me those 5 steps that are going to make this easy to work. Unfortunately, promoting diversity in the workplace is not always easy. It requires a lot of work, but it's not impossible. That's what I'm going to share later. So basically, it could mean that you have to work hard, you have to plan for it, you have to support, you have to admit you're not perfect, you have to be patient because it takes time, and finally, you have to get participation from everyone in your company. And also, I wasn't going to talk about bias in this presentation, but it's important to recognize we all have unconscious bias. Ignoring that is dangerous, but acknowledging it, learning how to recognize it quickly, and addressing it, that's how you'll get this right. So, I kind of excited you about diversity, then I came and burst your bubble saying it's complicated. I'm going to leave maybe? No, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm actually going to give you tips and tricks and share some learnings about what we did. So here it goes. We're moving to my favorite part of any presentation I give, which is the next steps. So what can you do when you go back to work on Monday? What can you suggest to your organizations? What can you actually do? So I'm going to do this two ways. One, give you the big picture by sharing some of our key learnings, what we identified as idea, and then I'm going to show you concrete examples of what we did, and feel free to copy them. So one of the key ways of being successful at diversity is to make diversity and inclusion everyone's priority. Really involve your team. If you make diversity one-person job, like just HR or just the CO, it will not work. You really need to incorporate the whole organization. Sorry about that. So, as I've showed you at P&G, you had these networks that made sure that diversity was in everyone's top of mind. What we did at Ozedea is we asked for people to sign up for a team whose sole responsibility would be to manage different diversity initiatives and bring diversity at the forefront. So we asked for volunteers, and we received a lot of applications for people that wanted to promote diversity within the organization. They came up with ideas, and they were really passionate about this topic. And they got kind of excited behind this idea of bringing the whole company together behind diversity and inclusion. The other thing to keep in mind is that diversity is a process. You know, if you think it's a quick fix or something that you're just going to spend one afternoon doing, that's not right. You really have to take your time. And it can be very stressful and overwhelming for you to start this whole process. But you can start with quick wins. What are some easy things you can do? And I'll give you some ideas later to avoid being discouraged. So what we did when we first met, we had over 50 ideas of things we could do. Now imagine like trying to accomplish 50 things in the next few weeks. That can be very stressful. But we decided to focus on 3 months, choose 5 initiatives that we were going to do really well, and go from there. So that got the ball rolling, and from there we did more and more. And in the last 2 years, we've delivered over 25 different initiatives, and some of them are permanent. About 10 are constantly going on. Another important piece, and I said this is something that we did, you really have to make diversity a core part of your culture. So if you think of diversity as just a checkbox or a financial goal, that will not work. You have to incorporate it in your main culture. And for us, so if you think about it, when we did our first 5 initiatives and they were successful, we could have said, yay, great, we can move on and do something else. But we just kept coming at it and finding different ways to challenge ourselves and involve the team. Finally, another one also is to implement diversity into your hiring pipeline. Whether your team is already diverse or you're looking to diversify, it's really important to explicitly focus on diverse talent. So go to events by diverse tech communities, for example. That's something that we do. Try to reach out to diverse talent, because if you hire only people that think like you or look like you, that's not a solution for a diverse environment. And also, one thing we did is when we have people over for interviews, there are specific questions that we ask in regards to diversity as our middle name value. So we kind of audit right away, is the candidate a right fit for us, because we want to embrace this culture of diversity and inclusion. So once you've hired them and it's all exciting, you want to incorporate diversity and inclusion into your onboarding. So that's very important. One way we do that is very well integrated in our employee handbook. It's also very integrated in our culture onboarding. But every new hire that starts at Ozedea, they have to meet with every single member of the team. We have a big team, so that's a lot of meetings. But at least it allows them to get to know people very quickly in their first month or so and feel included in this environment and feel included in this new company. So we think it's worth the time we spend in all those meetings to meet the new hires, because they see value. And when we get onboarding results, this is one initiative that people love the most. And then The final one, which now we've talked about things you can do internally, but I would also invite you to be inspired by what others do. So by showing up here today, you're already doing this step, but really research what's being done in the diversity space and be inspired. Share it with your team to celebrate it, to initiate ideas. There's so much good being done in the world right now in the diversity space. It'd be a shame not to look it up. And I recently had a chance to attend a conference where there was a panel of trans people. And there was this woman who had an inspiring story about how her company, a big, big company, worked hard to have her supported during her transition. So not only did they support her, they supported the whole team that was working with her. They communicated with customers, they communicated with key stakeholders to make sure that everyone was comfortable and aware of the transition she was going through. And I thought this was so inspiring that I shared it with my team right away. It energized me, and it gave me a chance to look into, are we doing enough to include trans people in our organization? Are there any guides that can help us? So it really raises those questions and pushes you to continually look for ideas. Okay, now I'm gonna share some initiatives. I guess we had a little backstage issue, so my Giphy isn't working. I forgot I had a little Giphy. I wanna share the initiatives that we loved. So our first focus was to focus on the individual. For example, we created this thing called diversity of passions. Every Friday we have a lunch and learn, and one of the topics people can do is talk about their passions for 10 minutes. So in the video you can see was one of my colleagues that was talking about dog sports. Every weekend he takes his dog for competition, and we didn't know that much about him, but we knew he was spending a lot of time with his dog, so it got us an opportunity to get to know him, get to know what he's doing on his free time. People talked about architecture, Dungeons and Dragons, the Yiddish language. So we got to see another side of our colleagues that we didn't know existed. And also, the initiative was so popular that we created a spin-off, and that spin-off was diversity of cultures. So in the same way, people could talk about their culture, culture they visited during a recent trip, or a culture they really admire. And we created diversity of paths to also showcase in about 10 minutes, what is the path that took you to work at Ozidea? What have you gone through? What did you want to be when you grow up? So it really gave us this chance to get to know everyone a bit better. The other thing that we do is this game. It's really fun. You must know it, like 2 truths and a lie. So teams share 2 truths and 1 lie, and we share it in Slack. Our design team does this graphic. And what happens is you get to vote on which one is a lie. So it's a lot of fun. We get high engagement. And then the people that actually share their stories, they're really proud to find something that nobody knows about them and something that's exciting about their life. So it's a really fun way to get to know people. Another one we wanted to focus on was to give one-on-one interactions. So kind of like when our new hires join, every 3 to 4 weeks you get an invite in your calendar to do a coffee with a coworker. So you're gonna get a chance to connect with a coworker you hadn't met in a while, or you hadn't had a chance to talk recently, or that you don't know. And they really appreciate having this moment to catch up that kind of they don't have to plan, it's planned for them. And we also, again, another success, so we created a spin-off again called Co-work with a Coworker. So once a month, for 30 minutes, you get to follow along what somebody that has a different role from yours is doing. So that's another one. We also made it a point to be involved in the tech community with local groups and diversity groups. So this is us, This is us with women in tech from McGill University. They came to our office and we kind of give them a chance to learn about technology jobs, what are the careers in tech. So it was a fun event. We also go to a lot of immigrant recruiting events we have at the Chamber of Commerce of Montreal. So we really try to stay involved in the community and have that outside focus. Another one is participating in local events. So this is part of our delegation at Women Tech Makers. It's a big conference in Montreal. And as you can see, it's women tech makers, but we also had men joining us to support us during that conference. We attend queer tech events, Black in tech events. So it's really not only to learn and be inspired from those different communities, but it also allows us to give back and to participate and to be part of those communities. And the other decision we had was to talk about diversity as a group through trainings and workshops. So in the last 2 years, we've done a training on accessibility, how to make apps and web apps more accessible. We've talked about unconscious bias, which I recommend any organization to do trainings on that. We've talked about diversity of personality, and just last April, we had a mental health month. So for a month, we were doing activities linked to meditation and mindfulness. We had psychologists that came to give workshops, so we learned about burnout, depression, how to take care of your mental health, how to get help. So really talking about these subjects that aren't always comfortable in a work environment, but that are key to the success of any organization. So, I've shared some of our favorite initiatives. I hope you kind of enjoy them, and feel free to reach out to me. We'll have a few minutes for questions at the end as well, or you can also go see Sébastien and Martin at the lounge later. I hope it has given you some thoughts. So it's a wrap for this. I hope your head is full with ideas, so when you actually go back Monday to work, you can start and activate, you feel empowered to action diversity. And I'm available. These are my contact information, so feel free to message me. I would like to hear what you're doing in the diversity space, as we always try to be inspired. And I'll leave the floor. We have about 3 minutes for some questions. Thank you.